We're here.
Hello!
Hello!
Hi, all. Welcome to a special Wednesday afternoon Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter.
And sadly,
why are we here this early in the afternoon?
We're here this afternoon because, well, we're being stood up tonight by Jesse Ventura. However, he was apologetic and will be rescheduling. So he was very nice about they were having a family situation.
Maybe I got to talk to the Vanguard guys. Maybe
don't get me started. About that. And then we were fortunate enough to have a last-minute person who is willing to come on and talk to us, who can educate us about lots of things.
Two last-minute people.
I'm still waiting to make sure Mr. Kaye shows up. But in the meantime, our friend Steve Grumbine is here and is going to chat with us. And I have to ask him a very important question.
Very important questions.
Very important question.
Let's see if we can accommodate. Well, I'm sure he can, because that's what he's here for.
Okay, so I'm going to ask him while he's back there because he can hear me. So Steve,
you know him.
You come on and I want you to answer, how are we going to finance the deficit?
Oh, we can't.
Okay, that's it.
It's
bring
over.
him on.
It's all over.
No, I need to know how we're going to finance the deficit.
Founder of the Real Progressives, host of the Macro and Cheese podcast. You know him, you love him. Steve Grumbine, welcome back to Generational Change.
Welcome. Thank you. How are you all doing?
Good. I was just watching you just like going off on the exchange between Stephanie Kelton and whatever libertarian X about financing the deficit. And I just thought that was so friggin' funny.
I think what I find the most interesting about the libertarian, because like I said, there are things like socially, when it comes to foreign policy, there are things that I really do agree with libertarians on. But when it comes to macro and microeconomics, they really have this mindset of, well, if you can't figure it out, then I guess you just have to die. and it's like, I don't know how that gets instilled in somebody's mind. I will say that one thing that never gets pointed out enough regarding Rand Paul is he comes from immense privilege. Like, it's not like he came into a situation where I totally made it myself and I just want the American people to do the same as I have. No, Ron Paul is your father. Like, you come from massive wealth. So I really
can we answer the question? Explain why me asking you how we're going to finance the deficit is really ridiculous. Like this is why we can't have nice things, because people ask questions that are so stupid.
Well, it really is stupid. And Stephanie, there's this great. It's a platform, and we're actually modeling a debate show that we're going to be doing in the future after it. And it's called Pair, P-A-I-R, Paragraph. And what they do is they pick two people in advance to kind of work out their debate, in writing. And they establish the kind of baseline for what is true and what is false and so forth. And it's pretty nice setup, because it's not trolling. It's actually trying to address the actual issues that are raised. And in the video that you're talking about, the reason why this stuff gets so problematic is because we have been led to believe that the big bad United States, this country that is so badass, it can literally take its army around the world, do whatever it wants to do. But somehow or another, this mega military might falls prey to the old Jewish guy at the Federal Reserve. I mean, somehow or another, they just can't defeat and I'm like, guys, listen, if you just go ahead and bribe the butler, you can go ahead and spike the Rothschild's Earl Grey. You could easily put a bar of soap in the tub, and when he slips and falls, hey, end of the issues, right? It's the Rothschilds, right? This is the insanity that comes from it. But worse, more mainstream thinkers even start thinking that the United States somehow or another has to borrow money from banks to finance its spending, because they don't realize that U.S. dollars are a law. They're a patent. It's a unit of measure that the country created, and every country, Japan created, the British, UK, sterling, pound sterling. You've got the Australian dollar, on and on and on. Each of these countries did the same thing. They created their own unit of account. And you have a central bank that facilitates payments between other, banks. That it's an interbanking system. Okay. And so when they say the United States has to finance its deficits, that means, can you imagine Tiny Tim rushing up? Oh, dear sir, oh, sir, please, sir, will you please allow us to borrow $20 trillion, $30 trillion? The bank goes, well, Sonny, you've been doing this for over 200 years and you're up to 30 trillion and still haven't paid it back. Why would I lend you another penny? It's ridiculous. We don't borrow money. It's just an accounting identity that when we spend money, we put a reserve in the liability section, and the asset is the spent money to us. And if you look at it from the government side, it's like looking in a mirror. You look at it, it looks like it's debt to the government, but you look at us, it's our private savings. So when they say finance deficits, it's like, you really don't get this, do you? You really are the slow kid that needs the extra remedial 099 training to get to even baseline. And that's part of the problem with talking with libertarians. It's part of the problem that Stephanie Kelton has. It's not so much that they're stupid, it's that they're starting from a fundamentally flawed point. It's like building a house, the foundation of your house in quicksand, and wondering why it's tilted. And that to me is the fundamental message that drives me crazy, that I'm trying desperately to get people to understand that this is not some inconsequential thing. This literally is the starting point before you even have the conversation. You got to have that base, and the base is the United States spends money into existence and it taxes money out of existence. It doesn't finance its deficits, doesn't do any of that stuff. So it's
really that's the key.
insane.
The key more than anything else is that it taxes money out of existence. So everybody's like, oh, why are you printing all this money? It's like, because certain money gets taken out. Again, and I have a friend who's very libertarian, and he has this idea of the deficit is this, and we're going to completely devalue the dollar. It's like, again,
blah, 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 inflation, blah, blah, blah.
And inflation is a serious problem. But Steve, please tell the American people, why do we have such an inflation problem right now?
So there's a couple things at play, and this is super important, because as much as it would be nice to create a bumper sticker that says something like "Thanks, Brandon" or something like that, which is highly effective, by the way. All these ads against Biden, they make it look like Biden did this, and you should know by now, I am not a Biden fan. So any defense of him is happenstance. Okay, it's not intentional. Okay, but the reality is that ultimately we have a couple things at play. We have the Saudi Arabia gang with an automatic little thing that clicks up the price of gas, and they'll keep raising that price until the economy busts. They have no incentive not to, and they're going to do it. Let's say that that's one aspect of inflation. The other aspect of inflation is that because during the pandemic, we had a lot of people that weren't working, not working in the kind of production fields that we needed. Supply chains around the world were broken completely. And so trying to put gas, it's like an old tractor sitting in your yard, and you're trying to get it to turn over, and you got your son up there, your daughter up there. You're like, give it the old crank there. You're like cleaning it out. It's like, blah, 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 blah. That's what happens when the economy goes and shut down like that. And we still haven't caught up. And in my other life, in my real professional life, I work in IT. And so talking with Cisco representatives and stuff, they're saying, hey, I know this sounds crazy. COVID's supposedly over. But the fact is that we have a year to wait to get those pieces of equipment. I'm like, a year? Because the semiconductors are still a shortage. There's still a shortage on semiconductors. So supply chains are another reason why there is inflation. But there's a third, more nefarious reason. And this is probably the most nefarious reason. There was a great article in The Guardian a couple weeks back that showed that U.S. corporations in general that are passing on, quote unquote, the cost of inflation to consumers are sitting there with 333% profit over this period of time, aka Amazon, 900% the Steel Corporation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And groceries up 200% profits. This is not happenstance. What happens is that because we have pathetically, and I'm just going to be ruthless with this critique here, we have pathetically accepted the Milton Friedman school of quantity theory of money. Okay, which has long been debunked. And the same thing, they're trying to do the Volcker method by jacking interest rates up to stave off inflation. All that will do is literally kill the economy. But the point is, going back to Uncle Milton for a minute, his belief that the more money you put into the economy, the more inflation will come. Well, the reality is that what we have is a country, a government that does not do its job in terms of audit, in terms of regulatory environment, et cetera. And you saw this with the great crash in 08 and 09, where we didn't have a quality SEC type of regulation over Wall Street. And we allowed them to do very, very criminal behavior with elite control fraud. And ultimately, what ends up happening? What ends up happening is you have a total collapse of the economy. What's happening now is that people, these businesses know that we believe that when the government spends money on the people, that inflation's coming. We believe it. We see it in our churches, our cartoons, our comic books. Every sitcom, every series we binge watch has these references to this quantity theory of money. Reality is that they're literally saying, hey, we can mark prices up. There's literal boardrooms that are a public document. They're not even hiding it. They're like, hey, the conditions are such that we can jack prices up, and they are. So a lot of this is a feckless, incompetent regulatory environment. A lot of this is also our own ignorance of what causes inflation. Part of it is the steady rising in gas prices, because let's just say we're consuming the same amount of gas we've always consumed. However, we've taken one major player, although it was only 3 to 6% of our internal adoption. We take Russia out of the equation right now. And so what ends up happening? You got to get it from somewhere. The United States has no energy policy. We're a free market economy. So all the people in the United States that manufacture and sell gas are exporting it. There's nothing national to say you can't do that. You got to keep it here. So they're selling it. So that leaves us with a certain percentage of gas that has to be picked up somewhere. The only people that have the capacity to meet that additional demand left off by the Russians are the Saudis. And so what are they doing? They're saying, we got you. We got you by the short hairs. We're going to raise it up. This should be our rallying cry for a Green New Deal, for windmills, for freaking solar panels, and for solar highways, you name it. But instead, we're just saying, thanks, Brandon. And we're not missing the point of it all. So that's
perfect timing, because what we should be advocating for is a 21st century Bill of Rights. And without further ado, he is a professor at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Of course, you know him, you love him. He's a friend of the show. Harvey Kaye, welcome back to Generation Change.
I got to laugh for a moment. Not at you, by the way. I'm laughing at the circumstance I just walked into. Let me explain. First of all, I don't know if people want to hear this. Jen, you didn't tell me what I thought we were going to talk about something. Sorry, not even about that. I thought it was going to be a private conversation between you and me, because all I got, whoever sent me the note, is, "Are you free this afternoon?" So, are you free this afternoon? I remembered, I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe more than that, you said to me, let's talk about books and publishing. Am I wrong?
No.
Right. So I thought we were going to have a private conversation. Number two, I never wear in public a monogrammed shirt. Okay.
You can't say never anymore.
No, this is a present that and it's a nice shirt, so I wear it when I'm around the house. I'm walking around the neighborhood. I don't go on TV with it. Then to add to it, by the way, if I had known, I could have the time I'm late, I could have used to change my shirt. But the funny next thing is, I come onto the computer and it says, it's StreamYard, things at StreamYard, and it said iOS, you can use such a. I go on to my university email account by way of Outlook and, Safari, and it wouldn't let me do anything. And I'm looking at my watch and, oh my God. So then, sorry, I don't mean to waste time, but I'm laughing still. So
good.
So then, wait, it's getting better. So then I try to go into Chrome and I find out that my mouse is out of power. Okay. So, and I have never done the sort of finger tracking thing very well. So then I find out that because I changed my email password a few days ago, my account by way of Chrome will not accept my old password. And I tried it over and over again. I had to literally reboot my computer. And thus, I finally, after I don't know how many minutes, came here. And then when it started up, I thought, I think in fact, that's right. Along the way, I looked on Twitter and it said I was on a show today. That was it, right? And so This is just too much today. So it's great to see you all. Okay.
This was an unexpected show. We put this together. We try to throw things together last minute because we were supposed to have Jesse the Body Ventura this evening, but it didn't work out. He had a personal matter come up, and we're going to look to push it to next week. But I figured this is probably as good a time as any. Because
you really should tell people it's for the show.
Well, wait, and that yes,
that they're coming on to a show.
Also, we've always done it. We've always done it in the evening together, and
that's true.
What's this guy? He's trying to beat I'm trying to beat the dinner rush. Get the 10% off. What can I say?
So then, as I sent you in the private chat, I don't know shit about inflation. Other than prices are higher and I got to not drive as far maybe as I would like to or something.
So one of the things I forwarded to Peter today was there was a little clip that was going around of Katie Porter basically explaining the price gouging situation, which is what it is. This is price gouging. And it's interesting because here, like post-hurricane, it's illegal to do that. You're not allowed to price gouge. There's rules about that. But yet somehow in the middle of a financial crisis, it's apparently okay to price gouge. So yeah, they are compensating for higher costs. That is true, but not to the extent that the prices are going up. Like it's so ridiculous. That's, the gist of the price.
No, absolutely. And although I think Steve's coverage of all those other possibilities is to be taken very seriously. But in fact, what we're witnessing is literally criminal. This is crazy. One can understand a price rise right now in the course of what's going on, but the gouging is the gouging that immediately, it's as if the oil companies, they didn't even have to talk to each other. They just said, hey, this is a great time to just jack up prices and blame the war in the Ukraine and full speed ahead, right? Something like that. And then it's the question of the food supplies because Ukraine is a breadbasket in many ways. But seriously speaking, I hate conspiracy theories. I really do. But I think we're at the point.
But you got one.
Oh, you got one?
No, I'm saying you got one for us today, though.
No, I don't. But I think that what we fail to consider oftentimes is that people, because they're so long pursuing the same ends, certain kinds of profits, that it doesn't require any kind of conspiracy for everyone to just think alike.
That's
right. That, and take advantage of it. They've gotten away with this for so long that when all of a sudden my car doesn't guzzle gas badly. I'll confess. I drive a 4-cylinder turbocharged Mustang, period. I've said it. Okay. But it's still the case that I've never seen, I don't think I've ever paid what I'm paying right now, or at least not in years since, maybe whenever the last time it just shot up like crazy. And the airline prices are up. And if you live in Green Bay, you've got to we don't have any of the deals that people in larger cities have. So you can fly from New York to LA cheaper than you could fly from Green Bay to New York. So you feel it in every which way if you're here. So you basically stay home and you bellyache about the situation. Sorry. Now I'm calmed down, I hope.
No, I think it's absolutely correct. And again, what we're looking at right now is, again, this idea of austerity, this idea of you need to fight to survive, and it's actually Biden's fault. But the truth is, as president of the United States, and if Bernie was president right now, I think there would be serious talks about nationalizing oil, and that isn't even being discussed even marginally. But when you are corporate captured, you go where the corporate money is, and the corporate money is with big oil. And if that means the consumer has to be screwed over royally, and again, it's like dangling the cheese, Steve. It's this idea that, if we were in power, it wouldn't be happening. But because, Brandon's in power, that's the reason it's happening. Yeah. And they have such an opportunity to push back against it and do something. And everyone's wondering, why the hell don't they do it? Well, when you're engulfed with corporate special interests, you kind of are at their beck and call. And their beck and call is screw the consumer every which way possible.
Yeah, look, you got to go. Yeah, hold on real quick. You got to go deeper on that one, because Buttigieg just the other day, in talking about the formula shortage, specifically went full, like he said, never go full libertarian, right? He went full libertarian and basically said, hey, the government's not in the business of making formula. Why in the world will we do it? Free markets, baby. right? I mean, literally, this is neoliberalism. This is what you get with the Democratic Party. And unfortunately, there's people in the Republican Party that think exactly the same because they're both neoliberal parties. It's too convenient just to call them capitalists, and it's too convenient to point to the lobbyists. They are fundamentally market fundamentalists. They believe in markets. Elizabeth Warren even said, I'm a capitalist to my bones. I love markets. These people are to be avoided and literally shunned with every bit of your being.
I'm going to disagree with you in one sense. They don't believe in markets. They do not believe in markets. They believe in whatever will bring them profits. And by the way, they're more than willing to take subsidies. Nothing market-based about subsidies. They're more than willing to have prices regulated when it works in their favor. Look, I mean, let's be clear about this. They are not market. They're just not. But it's a great ideological weapon.
I agree. That's the neoliberal perspective.
I remember back in the, I don't even know, it was sometime in the 2000s, early on, could have been the 90s for all I know. It was a discussion here in Wisconsin about whether or not to do some kind of statewide healthcare plan. And there was a debate between sort of one of the leaders of the Democrats in the assembly, in the state house, and one of the Republicans. And the Democrat, this is the Democrats' problem. The Democrats actually took policy seriously. And this guy just laid out an incredible argument as to how we could handle a statewide healthcare plan and make sure everyone was covered. And it was just brilliant and definitely sleep-inducing. The Republican, it was incredible. The Republican, when asked, what's your response to that, said, I think we need to let the magic of the market do its work. Boom. I mean, I remember to this day that, and then just the other day, just the other day, I heard the same argument rendered. Plus, by the way, are you all in Florida? Where are you guys located?
South Florida.
I know you are. Are you, Steve, as well?
No, I'm in purple Pennsylvania.
Okay, well, and you have a U.S. Senate race this year. Do you guys have a U.S. Senate race this year?
We do, but
not as competitive as this one is.
It's technically yes, but in reality,
it's not.
So much.
Okay, well, we do in this state, and I thought up to 6 months ago that it would be easy to push Ron Johnson into retirement. I really did. And now we've got 4 candidates running. I've endorsed one of them, who's the most progressive policy-wise, but he's running 4th out of the 4. And I can tell you, all you gotta do is go onto YouTube, turn on the television, and it's a repetitive ad. Ron Johnson is in Washington fighting, Biden and the Democrats who are causing this inflation. In other words, now, and then, in one sense, well, they're not causing this inflation, but sure as hell, they're not fighting it very effective. They're not doing that much. But it's the case that you can just see the Democrats have yet. Look, I'm in this moment these couple of weeks, and remind me to talk about it. I'm in this moment these couple of weeks where I go from utter deflation to a brief exhilaration. And my utter deflation is always in response to what I see the party that I vote for do. The Democratic Party is driving me crazy. They are not to be trusted as a party. Their leadership has to be driven out as quickly as that's possible. Okay. And hopefully Bernie runs again in 2024. How's that?
There you go.
I'm glad you made that correction there, because one of the things that it's like they want the government, which is why neoliberalism is what it is, right? I mean, we got the World Bank, WTO, IMF, all extensions of this neoliberal mindset where they quote unquote want free markets for the little people, but they want government control to clear those markets and to maintain those markets and maintain their private property at a very, very high jackbooted level. And to me, that right there is the Buttigieg plan. It's the Biden plan. Biden is, I mean, if you watch match tape together of Biden for the last 50 years, I swear to God, you'd think, man, let me vote for Reagan so I can get that right winger out of office. I mean, that's how bad Biden is. He's the maybe the worst Democrat that I have ever seen in my life. And so it's easy.
No, wait a second. How old? You're not that young. Hold on a second.
53.
I'm going to give you because I want to make something clear.
I dropped my bowl.
Go for it.
The worst Democrat in our lives was Jimmy Carter. Okay.
You know what?
Look, because
I have to hear why. I'm going to have to hear why, because that's my least offensive president.
I might be able to jump in there with you. Go for it.
Then you're too young to know. Okay.
I am not.
I know we've been through this before. You are. Okay. Look, Peter before said very effectively one word, and that word was austerity. Who do you think was the president who pushed, and not the idea, the word austerity in speeches in 1978 as he put on his whatever
Jimmy
it was,
Carter.
cardigan sweater, blah, blah, blah. It was Jimmy Carter.
You goddamn right.
And then he brought Volcker into the Federal Reserve, knowing that Volcker would, well, first, let's be clear. Carter turned his back on the labor movement in 78, the environmental movement in 78, and the consumer movement of Ralph Nader. Literally turned his back, okay? There was legislation pending. He did nothing, zilch, okay, about it. 2, he and his family hated FDR, okay? They were not going to go any kind of FDR route. That was pretty clear. 3rd, capital targeted him. This is the age of the Business Roundtable. CEOs flew into D.C., lobbied Congress, and pressured Carter. He didn't have to be pressured that much, Carter. And he opted to, he'd said, I'm going to put all my political capital into giving Panama Canal back to Panama. If you like that idea, that's great. But frankly, not when you screw labor and everyone else at the same time. Doug Frazier, who was the head of the UAW at the time and was on something called the DuPont Commission, which was the Industrial Relations Commission of Capital and Labor, which supposed to talk about the state of America in those terms. He resigned from the commission and issued a public letter saying, I cannot serve on a commission with people who've declared open class war on us. Okay. This was Jimmy Carter. And then I'm leaving out something else. Well, I mean, I could go on. He brings in Volcker. They knew what they were going to do. They were going to literally screw the working class, period. Okay. And they did it. And that's why in 1980, Reagan could never, ever have won if it had not been that Carter was more Reagan at the outset, probably than Reagan had ever hoped to be.
Harvey, how much different do you think 1980 would have been if Ted Kennedy was the nominee?
Well, probably. Okay. Ted Kennedy was more conservative than at that phase than a lot of people realize, though healthcare was high on his agenda. But the key thing is, I think you've asked a good question. And I do think that if Kennedy had beaten Carter, I think they would have gone after Kennedy on moral grounds, period.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean that he couldn't have beaten Reagan. Look, people always said, well, who voted for Reagan? Look, the older folks voted for Reagan. Well, actually, it's not the case. Millions of people just stayed home in 1980. I mean, if you're a union member, you're a worker, and you see what the Democrats have done, right? Then you're either going to be so angry you're going to vote for Reagan, or more likely you're going to stay home. And I want to give a figure, and I could be wrong on this. I read somewhere it was like 10 million working people stayed home in that year. I don't quote me on that. It's just
Steve, you had something you wanted to add about Carter.
Well, yeah, I just want to tip my hat to him because I despise Joe Biden, and I'm living through the Biden experience now. So it's a little bit more like the hot stove I know. But you're exactly right, though. I mean, all the history there, Volcker is Carter, all of that stuff, that whole experience is all Jimmy Carter. He's a much better ex-president than a president. I'll leave it at that. He builds some good homes. We'll leave it at that. I mean, seriously, you can't knock his post, but he was a horrible president. And it's just hard to remember that because Reagan did so much damage. And you see Democrats, the history of neoliberalism always starts with Ronald Reagan. They never give credit to Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter
who started
really
the deregulation of finance? Who started
Absolutely.
it? Who started
Jimmy.
the deregulation of transportation?
Jimmy.
I mean,
no, I stand corrected, man. You are spot on.
Thank you.
Spot on.
No, that's made my day.
You guys ever met? You guys have met before, yes?
Nope, never. But I'm going to talk to him in the future for sure. I love this guy.
All right. So we probably should
see. We've brought another good group.
Yeah, I was going to ask in the first place if you guys have ever met. So Harvey, you don't know Steve. Steve goes on.
Well, Steve looks familiar to me. I must have seen him on one of the shows.
He has a few. He has a few things, and he's been on ours, but he has a few of his own things. And
he's also does stuff with Jordan Chariton's
with Jordan.
Status Quo.
Right.
Okay. Well, that could easily be one of the.
And what Elizabeth brought up is very true. There were a lot of college students voting for Reagan. In many ways, the whole Trump phenomenon in 16 is very parallel to what happened with Reagan winning in 80. This whole idea, as you just pointed out, Harvey, which I was not actually very well aware of, I knew about Reagan, Democrats for Reagan. I know that was a big thing, but this whole idea of a lot of the labor unions, and I think that.
Oh, by the way, the Democrats for Reagan later became Jews for Jesus.
that's
well, and they make about as much sense, except for now Democrats for Reagan does make sense. Now,
by the way, I have not been drinking. I'm so caught off guard, and I didn't prepare since I didn't know. I thought I was going to talk about something else. I'm just stream of consciousness right now.
No, let me throw a stream of consciousness thing out there that I know Jen will enjoy real quick, and you might as well. I just found out that in the state of Pennsylvania, the actual medical marijuana law does not allow you to put flame to flower. It must be vaporized. In what world does that? It literally is illegal. You got medical marijuana, but if you're caught smoking it in a bowl or in a bong, it's illegal. It's fine if you vaporize it, but otherwise it's illegal. You could, I kid you not. And from what I understand, when you go to your dispensary in Pennsylvania, you still can get a DWI if your bag, even sealed and then whatever, is within arm's distance of you. It must be beyond arm's distance or you will get a DWI. Anyway, I'm sorry, just an absurd.
That's funny when you say all that because Wisconsin, there's just no illegal grass. But it's so much. I mean, we live close enough to Michigan. There's billboards, closer than you think.
You know what? Everywhere I live in my life, there's legal grass. It might not be legal for all, but it's legal for where it needs to be legal.
For one.
You know what I mean? for me. And I will say the idea that you can't light flowers.
You're a law unto yourself. I like that.
I am an island unto myself. No, I just that's privilege. That's privilege.
Oh, well, sorry. Yeah, right.
It is what it is. Like that, I feel like I've always been comfortable doing that, even though it's not legal. It's privilege. It's disgusting, but it is true. But like there very well could be a law like that. Like that makes sense. And I'll tell you why. Like I'm sitting here thinking, why would they care if you light flower versus if you vape? Like, why would they care? It's more money if you vape, because if you vape, a lot of people, instead of grinding, what they'll do is they'll just buy the cartridges, which are inherently more product, more produced, more money. And also the vaping apparatus, you have to spend money to vape. Like if you just have flour, all you need is rolling papers, right? Like it's not as profitable of an industry. That would be my guess, because it sure as hell is not that they're concerned about your health. Because by the way, actually vaping is considered worse health-wise in terms of marijuana than just smoking it. So it's weird. Wow. I'm just saying, so they don't care about your health.
No, and again, what they care about is profit. Ultimately, we have a for-profit prison industrial complex, and that's why you punish people for smoking cannabis, which gets you away from prescription drugs, which is how Big Pharma makes their killing. The Sackler family, again, I haven't seen Dope Sick. It is something that I have to see.
Have you guys seen Dope Sick?
No, but I'm going to. It sounds like a winner.
It's on.
I don't know if I could handle anything more depressing than the state of affairs right now.
Okay, well, it's just, it is. It's a sad story, but it's about how the opioid industry purposely targeted poor mining towns to create addiction.
By the way, have you noticed the opioid crisis seems to be over? Have you noticed?
Yes, it's
just like COVID's over. I mean, come on, everything's back to normal. Joe got in there and saved the day, and now we're all back to normal again.
By the way, I'll go back and quote another thing of Pete, as long as we're here. Okay, you mentioned the Economic Bill of Rights stuff. Okay. And I just want you to know that something really big happened on Saturday. I think I sent you a note, Jen, or I sent it to you or to one of your assistants who may have.
Well, it's him and me, but he checks the email more.
Maybe okay. When I see generational change, I assume it's you, and I forget you've got an intern.
We both.
He's not my intern. He's my partner.
I'm just.
It's better than you saying he's my son. We've been confused for that before.
I think when I first met you, I thought you were a couple.
That's a little bit. I mean, that's at least not offensive to me. You know what I mean? It's incorrect, but it's not offensive.
He should be so lucky. I know. Anyhow, so but here's more important. So Saturday, the Democratic Party of Massachusetts was in convention over the weekend, and somebody actually took Alan Minsky's and my Economic Bill of Rights and reduced it to a one-page thing, he literally, the Democratic Party of Massachusetts has endorsed and embraced the Economic Bill of Rights. I know that it's small in grand historic terms, but
it's good.
If that can then become, like the beginning of something, I don't even care right now it's not going to get legislated right away anywhere necessarily. But if state parties would start embracing this, then it would be the kind of thing that literally in the next couple of years, if we haven't lost democracy altogether, then the progressives in Congress might actually wake up and embrace it as well.
Well, our state
I want to hear about your
Party is run by a
economic.
Republican. That's all.
I want to hear about this Bill of Rights, because when you brought me on and told me that I was going to be joined with this gentleman here, and you told me about this 21st century Bill of Rights.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Okay.
I have not seen it, and I want to hear about it for sure. I'm sure I will. That's what I want to hear about, so I can get behind it.
Well, Steve, if I could just tell you, when you get a chance afterwards, if you type in, go to YouTube and type in Gravel Harvey Kaye. So I did a video with the Gravel Institute people, actually about a year ago, and it got posted this past January. And it's basically titled "The Most Radical Speech in Presidential History." It's about Franklin Roosevelt's 1944 State of the Union message, in which he, in addition to talking about the war effort and other things, he spoke specifically at the end about the fact that we've come to the point in our history where we realize that, as he put it, necessitous men are not free men. We would say necessitous people, needy people, are not free people. And he said, and it's time to, in essence, go back to the social contract. The time has come, in the spirit of the founders, to create a second Bill of Rights, an Economic Bill of Rights. And he lays out a 1944 version of that. So when I did my book on the fight for the four freedoms, what made FDR and the greatest generation truly great, this is all part of the arc of the, if you like, the age of Roosevelt. But the other thing is, which people don't realize, and forgive me, Pete and Jen, you've heard this whole thing before, but it is the case that although he gave the speech, there was little chance at that moment it could ever come to be constitutionally, because of the fact that you had Republicans and Southern white supremacist Democrats who were essentially aligned over certain kinds of questions. And the Republicans didn't want anything that would literally empower working people, like an Economic Bill of Rights. And the Southern Democrats would have loved the idea of an Economic Bill of Rights if there were no African Americans. In other words, they did not want blacks to have those kind of rights. Most especially, and this was the reason Truman could not get national health care passed, is they didn't want to desegregate hospitals in the South. Okay, so, but that didn't mean it was forgotten. And in 1960, and this is something very, very, I don't even think Democrats at the leadership or in Congress or anywhere else know this, but in 1960, the Democratic Party platform, which was authored, well, I mean, it was based on a national set of meetings, but it was authored by Chester Bowles, who had been the head of the Office of Price Administration in the Roosevelt administration during the war years. And he wrote the Democratic platform along the lines very blatantly, in the Economic Bill of Rights FDR laid out, he lays out and then expresses the policy initiatives that would be required for the Democrats to pursue. So the 1960 Democratic Party platform is, and if you like, an enhancement of that Economic Bill of Rights. But Kennedy was no great progressive or liberal. Between them, Johnson ends up becoming far more progressive, war on Vietnam aside, which he inherited from Kennedy and extended. But in 1965, A. Philip Randolph, the great black labor and civil rights leader, issued a freedom budget. And since we've got video, I just want to point out to everyone, okay, freedom budget for all Americans, okay? Budgeting our resources, 1966 to 75, to achieve freedom from want. And this is laid out along the lines of FDR's four freedoms and Economic Bill of Rights. And 150 university presidents, labor leaders, civil rights leaders, foundation heads endorsed it. And I could tell you that it was not out of the question that the Johnson administration would have rejected it. However, and I say that because in that same year, they actually held a symposium at the White House to honor A. Philip Randolph. And you could have imagined this kind of thing coming together. But of course, Johnson's first priority became the war in Vietnam. And not only did the Great Society initiatives lose, dollars and possibilities, but obviously the freedom budget just got pushed aside. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr., not long before he was assassinated, called for a 21st century version of FDR's Economic Bill of Rights. Bernie Sanders, both in 15 and 19, called for to remember those Economic Bill of Rights. And then actually in 2019-20, he laid out on his website the Economic Bill of Rights that he saw necessary for the 21st century. But of course, the Democrats would not have, they weren't going to let him win the presidency. Though I will also tell you, Bernie Sanders never took the Economic Bill of Rights or FDR with him onto the debate stage, which I think was his greatest sin in the debates. Anyhow, so I've been talking about this Economic Bill of Rights for several years, and I did this video with the Gravel people, and Alan Minsky, who's the head of Progressive Democrats of America, whom I become friendly with, said, maybe we should put together a 21st century Economic Bill of Rights and launch it. And in fact, he had the idea of taking it right to the Progressive Democrats with the idea that any candidate they would endorse should at least embrace what we've laid out. So I'm hogging the mic here. Can I just read this quickly, or do you want to put one up, or what do you want to do? Go with it? Okay, so This is a 21st century Economic Bill of Rights. 1, the right to a job that pays a living wage, which was, by the way, part of FDR's. 2, the right to a voice in the workplace through a union and collective bargaining, which was not actually in FDR's because he thought he had already solved that problem with the National Labor Relations Act and it didn't foresee what would transpire with the Taft-Hartley Act the Republicans pushed through in 47. He died in 45. 3rd, the right to comprehensive quality health care, which Roosevelt himself wanted in the Social Security Act of 1935, but could not get it included, but then did include it in the Economic Bill of Rights he called for. 4, the right to a complete cost-free public education and broadband internet. 5, the right to decent, safe, affordable housing. 6, the right to a clean environment and a secure planet. 7, the right to a meaningful endowment of resources at birth and a secure retirement. And by the way, that one, number 7, actually comes basically is associated with Thomas Paine in the 1790s when he wrote Agrarian Justice, which was really the first ever call for a social security plan. And when he called for it, for people he said people beyond a certain age should not have to work. He also said we should prevent poverty by giving young people grants of money to do what they feel like what they could pursue in order not to fall into poverty, whether it was, education, a small business, buy land, whatever. Number 8, the right to sound banking and financial services. 9, the right to an equitable and economically fair justice system. Did I skip 6, the right to a clean environment and secure planet? I did say it. Okay. And finally, number 10, the right to recreation and participation in public life, which, by the way, was very much a part of FDR's. In fact, the commission that was working through the 30s into the 40s, well, especially in the 30s, that helped FDR develop those ideas, which was a really, really important commission that no one has heard of called the National Resources Planning Board. They actually called for the right to recreation and adventure. Okay, and adventure. Yeah. In fact, I do recall that, not to go back to the subject of grass, but I do recall the last time that I was on talking about this, we talked about recreation, and you folks immediately went to recreational marijuana, but we don't want to go back there.
I just love that you call it grass. So, Steve,
that's a sign of my age, isn't it?
That's why I love it. It's just so telling. Steve, what are your thoughts on the 21st Century Bill of Rights?
I absolutely love it. And I don't know if you've ever spoken to him or not, Harvey, but there's a gentleman named Derek Hamilton.
Yeah, and Derek Hamilton, yes. And I'll just say that Derek Hamilton has favored for a long time the reparations question, okay? But when he got together with a friend of mine, Mark Paul, a young economist who was teaching until recently at New College in Sarasota, will be at Rutgers next year, they got together. There were three of them, and they proposed a 21st century economic bill of rights, which we drew upon. And I will tell you that the question for him for the 21st century economic bill of rights had to do with this material endowment question, which is why I reached back to Thomas Paine. Should anyone ask, well, aren't you then proposing reparations? No, I'm proposing the 18th century call for a material endowment for all kids, which, by the way, will reduce every one of these things, will have a greater impact on reducing the wealth structure than would specifically a probably unwieldy and maybe politically troubling reparations program.
He has, it's called baby bonds.
Yes, that's
put
it.
Out there.
Right. Baby bonds. Right.
The baby bonds were, so I was thinking, I mean, you got to find your allies here as you try to advance.
Yeah, no, in fact, yes. I personally have not been in touch with him, though we follow each other on Twitter, as I recall.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I love this. I mean, it gives you a very concrete view of value, what you value,
okay,
what we value as a society.
You'll enjoy knowing. In Wisconsin, where Scott Walker literally transformed the political landscape, we are still suffering badly under Republican legislature, and we fear the possibility of a return of a Republican to the governorship. But a couple of Democratic young women, young to me at least, freshman assembly women, introduced, it couldn't even get onto the floor really because of the Republicans, the idea of a Wisconsin Economic Justice Bill of Rights, which is essentially similar to what I just laid out. And one happens to be a good friend of mine and assemblywoman from my district. Similarly, as I just said, the Democrats in Massachusetts have embraced it. And apparently it was a 97% vote in favor, for what it's worth. Similarly, I've been in touch with a woman in the assembly in New Hampshire who is eager to try to create an economic justice caucus to take this up. So I really do think that if we can get through these, if we could survive November 2022, then we could get some a major national conversation going on this. But I can also tell you that I have little confidence. I mean this sincerely. I have very little confidence in the Progressive Caucus right now, the way it's
ditto.
Pray tell why.
Is that a joke? Did you ask me why? Well, let me tell you. Let me use two words to tell you. Okay, Nina Turner.
Well, yeah.
That cut her off. And what I think is probably more interesting, and I definitely want to hear from both of you guys. We saw what happened yesterday with a lot of the primary elections. I think there were a couple of really solid victories, but not necessarily the ones that everyone is paying attention to. For example, good friend of ours, Kim Graham, who is now almost, well, I want to say assuredly, there's no guarantees, but is very likely going to be the Polk County state attorney in Iowa. That's a big deal.
Those are important positions. People don't realize they're so fixated on the national, but I'm telling you, your state attorney is one of the most important people in the world, like to a lot of people. That is huge.
Especially in Des Moines. I mean,
have a
the
progressive
heart of everything
sitting in there.
Yeah, if you're gonna if the progressives, whether it is Bernie or potentially somebody else, obviously the list is very, very short for 24. But if that were to be possible, having somebody that is a true progressive and non-corporate that is representing the most populous part of Iowa, that's a big deal. And you need the people at the local level in the positions that not everybody's focusing on. Like everybody's looking at California right now, and the progressives that ran for Congress, they did not do well yesterday. I think David Kim has a puncher's chance against Jimmy Gomez in LA. Obviously, it looks like Mr. Caruso is going to buy his way into the mayoral seat in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that seems to be it. Really, yeah.
But the one victory that I think could be really big is Ken Mejia, who I've known since, he was down here volunteering during the Tim Canova, Debbie Wasserman Schultz race back in 2016. He ran with the Green Party multiple times, and now he is poised to become the next comptroller of Los Angeles. That is a big deal. And those are the races that are not getting talked about. Everyone's focusing on the fact that the congressional races are not being won. And the reality is a lot of these down ballot races, these state races, they are never challenged. and they don't cost a fraction of what it costs to run for president. I think in the progressive movement, especially the non-corporate movement, people need to get out of their head that everyone is going to be the next AOC or the next Cori Bush. It literally is like winning the lottery. Whereas there are other seats that are of immense importance that if you were to win would have a tremendous impact on what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, too many people rightly celebrate AOC and Cori Bush, but those are seats that could be won, strangely enough. But once AOC won, then all the bets later are off because they learned their lesson, the corporate Democrats, on that kind of seat. They just cannot take anything for granted. And they're going to pour money into lots of places. Now, so I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And the other thing I would say is that, well, I've talked about this before. It's striking to me that the Democratic Party, this is the obvious I'm going to state, the Democratic Party seems more concerned about fighting its own left than fighting the Republicans. In every way, constantly. And honestly, I'm not jumping to any third party. I will not waste my time on that. But really is the case that these seats this year that were like Cisneros, they haven't done the recount yet, correct? I mean, it's not completely out of the question, but as I always say to people, it is Texas after all. I'd be careful what people think might happen there. It really is the case that young people, young people are going to have to really start turning out in big numbers if they really want to see progressive change in this country, because we know that on polling, people want the kinds of things in this economic Bill of Rights. There isn't a thing on that list that doesn't garner majority support when people are asked, but people are so convinced that they don't deserve anything, or they'll never get anything, or whatever it might be. And then when the Democrats win and they don't get anything, they're convinced of it, right? I mean, right now, it is inconceivable to me that Biden last year didn't sign off on student debt relief.
Come on, man.
It's absolutely inconceivable to me.
Steve, hop in there,
he
baby.
wants to say something.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
I really do. And the first thing is that everything that we're saying here is exactly why I live and breathe modern monetary theory, why I'm hyping Stephanie Kelton, why I'm lifting to the heavens this economic model so that we can make these things happen. Because if you think that everything's scarce, then you're naturally going to believe you don't deserve it. And this whole Calvinistic bullshit that has been pushed on us since the dawning of the colonial period of this country, we're fucked there. But I want to say this is the most important thing that I'm gathering from this entire call. And I'm really excited right now. And that doesn't happen very much anymore. I feel like somebody slipped a purple pill into my drink here, and all of a sudden I'm standing at attention. But the truth of the matter is that this is exactly what we need for a new Occupy Wall Street, the OWS stuff. This is the manifesto, your 21st century bill. This is it, man. I've been begging. I talked to Jordan about this. I talked to everybody on my own Rogue Scholar. I talk about it in Macro and Cheese. I talk about everywhere I go. It's not, I don't believe we have time, or I really don't have the heart for a third party. You're exactly correct on that. But that doesn't stop us from being activists united beyond the party spectrum, where they don't have control of our minds. And we could say, to hell with that. This is exactly what we stand for. We know it's possible. You're going to do this, or you're going to suffer the wrath of 349 million. The other million, I'm sure, probably bootlickers that'll defend them. But the other 349 million, hopefully we can get people out there for real rallying and making this happen. It is literally, I don't want to see another situation where you go out to all these protests, you take the selfie, you get the t-shirt, you get the action figure, you go home, wax poetic about it for a month, and you're off to the races. I really want to see a continued, sustained, non-electoral ebbs and flows, a consistent, just F you, we're doing this. You're going to change this country, damn it. And if you don't, you're going to get used to seeing us in your front yard, your backyard, at church, at your kids, wherever. I don't care. You will not be able to hide from us. And that
I
to
guess
me
I have one
is
footnote to what I said is I would like whenever that executive order is issued that the Democrats do one little thing for me.
Yeah.
Outlaw for-profit higher education.
Yes, and medical.
I mean, I always say exactly. Wait, he was just talking about something that I always say.
That what is about the protesting and the fact?
Oh yeah, I don't think those people should get a moment's peace. I think that if you're a public figure that's supposed to be representing the majority of people in some sort of democratic state, that when you're going against the majority, you should hear that everywhere you go. Yes. Once you walk out of your house. I don't think you should, and I non-violently. But like, if somebody wants to follow Kirsten Sinema in the bathroom, that's her problem. I have nothing wrong with that. You want to go against the majority of people. I don't care if you're on the Supreme Court. I don't care where you are. You're going to hear about it. That's the beauty of it.
And it goes without saying, everyone is going to make a big stinking deal about the fact that, listen, Chevy Chase is one of the most expensive suburbs in the whole country. That is where Justice Kavanaugh lives. And a guy apparently was planning a murder-suicide and got caught by, I guess, the FBI. And you really think it's just one guy? Do you not understand, like, you could cut the tension with a knife right now, and how desperate people are, and that this is only going to get worse? They really think that we could just, they really think this, Steve. It's like, we can just arrest everybody. We're just going to arrest everybody. Yeah, you're going to pick off one, but when it's a dozen, when it's 50, when it's 50,000, you're not going to be able to stop it. And it's going to inspire more and more people to get off their ass. You don't want people to have a living wage. You don't want people to have Medicare for all. You don't want people to have a clean energy grid so they don't have to drink contaminated freaking water.
And you want them uneducated.
You want them uneducated. You don't want universal education.
And you give them guns.
And if you want to talk about when you talk about what is made in the United States, we make weapons here. So when everyone's talking about we got to stop making the AR-15 and letting people get their hands on it, what do you think they're making right now to send to Ukraine?
That's what we do.
This is our economy. We made, the Clintons in particular, made a conscious choice to sell out to third world countries so they can have slave wage. So we don't have a union movement. We've got one brewing right now. I would tell you this, Harvey. If Bernie had been running for president right now, after what Chris Smalls pulled off and with Amazon in the heat of a presidential election, he probably would be the president right now, because there would be that galvanized feeling of labor for the first time since probably the days of Kennedy and Johnson.
Timing is everything.
Yeah, timing really is everything. It really is.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Right. Definitely, timing is everything. Absolutely.
And so
quick call. I want to have Harvey on Macro and Cheese, which is our podcast. It would be my honor. I'm doing it publicly because I don't have a Vine offline, but I really want to talk to you about this. This is really exciting to me.
See what we
Macro and Cheese. That sounds great.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I've been on there.
Food for thought, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like it should be.
I think I was probably your least educated guest, Steve. I think I was probably your least educated guest.
I do spend a lot of time in academia on the show for sure, but I bring the activist element. That's how we keep it real.
Steve, I'd be happy to do it, but you got to do me a favor. You got to do me a favor, okay? You got to buy a book.
Which one is it?
Okay,
because I read incessantly.
Honestly, I think the one. I'll give you a choice. Okay.
Which one? I've read one of these.
Okay, I think the book that you should read is this one.
You got it. I'll add it right now.
Okay, and it's in paperback, and it's available pretty low price. Okay, or if you want to speed read,
that's what I read because that's the thing.
I'll do both. How about both?
That's great. That's great. These are speeches and essays. Yeah. These you can read on the toilet, man.
Right.
I do a lot of toilet reading too. Trust me. I do a lot of toilet reads. I do a lot of toilet podcast listening too. By the way,
that's exactly a guy.
I used to shock my students early in a semester.
Why do you think that's a guy thing? Girls poop.
It is a guy thing.
Trust me, girls do it too. My wife.
I spend much more time on the toilet.
You might spend more time there. Girls poop, and people. And I know this is shocking, but women, we also read. So we read and we poo. I'm
See,
just saying.
And
Well, wait,
ironically,
no,
for the guys out there, it actually stinks too. By the way, it's not just men that stink. Women come
So
with
it's not
odor
like
too.
that poopery stuff that they put on.
That's right,
you know,
man.
I used to tell my students they all had to get in the first year. I didn't even care what the course was. They had to get world maps, and I said that you have to put it wherever you sit on the toilet, put it on the wall opposite if you can. I said, and if you guys are going to tell me you can't do that because it's facing the shower or something like that, then you put it over the toilet. So every time you're standing there, it'll imprint on your brain.
What?
That's awesome.
I like that background.
Do you do that yourself? Do you just flip a switch and do that? I need to set it up so that because like you were talking about
This is
booty
real.
judge. Yeah, well, this is real, but I was when
nice,
you were talking
good.
about booty judge. I had a really good graphic that I did for him the other day that I put his face, I superimposed it over Marie Antoinette, and it said, "Let them drink water," and it was all these little babies everywhere. Yeah. Because
you all know, of course, talking about irony in politics. His father was a scholar of the Marxist political theory, of the communist, Antonio Gramsci.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, and I didn't know his father personally, but we were part of the same network back in the 80s and into the early 90s. And I could not believe this was the son of, and, look, if the Democrats really want to lose, they'll either run Harris or Buttigieg, but,
No, they do want to lose.
They
for
want.
two
Oh, they
reasons,
definitely want to
because
lose.
they know that it's a matter of not if, but when somebody that is on the true non-corporate progressive side of things is going to be able to break through. Whether it is not likely in 24, because everything right now is pointing towards DeSantis. But if there is going to be that opportunity, let's say in 28, if we're building the foundation like we're trying to do here in Florida, it's necessary to start building that foundation because, like you said, Harvey, the Democrats would rather lose to a Republican than win with a non-corporate progressive because it goes against the funding infrastructure of their own party.
Yeah, I was convinced, right? I was convinced in 2020. I mean, I know there were other reasons too. I was convinced in 2020 that they let, what's his name? Who's the billionaire who they had on
Bloomberg.
Bloomberg. They had Bloomberg there as
we got a beautiful story. We got a beautiful story for him when you finish.
Okay, all I want to say is that he was there as a threat. That if Bernie wins, we're going to create the third party.
Right.
Yeah.
You go on there, little man. And instead, what he did is he came into Florida and bought our state party.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then he placed a Republican at the head of our Florida Democratic Party.
And would you like to guess who he partnered with behind the scenes to make sure that Manny Diaz became the state party chair? Who do you think was the person in the Democratic Party in Florida that made that happen? Why don't you guys take a guess?
I don't know.
Debbie Wasserman.
Oh, she's staring me in the face.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's right.
I call her Debbie What's Her Name Schultz, but there you go.
He does Bernie. Is it when you're in Bernie and you like, what's her face? What are you?
Look, I have been listening in the green room. This has been a fantastic conversation today. Harvey, it's good to see you. Steve, keep doing what you're doing. But remember, Jen, it's very important that the American people understand that you're entitled to a 21st century Bill of Rights. You should have a job that pays a living wage. We need to have a Green New Deal. I'm not doing that. I just don't. You could do it if you want, but I don't participate. That's okay.
Can I just ask you, are you now dismissing us?
No, we're not dismissing you. I wanted to join the conversation.
He tries to make it organic.
No, my name was mentioned, and of course, I wanted to come in here and just say hi to everybody because this is a great conversation.
And I love it when he does.
By the way, I want to commend you.
It's so funny.
I all the times that we've been together on stage in this way, this is the best you've done. You really are good.
Well, I've been practicing for a while, and Lord knows I am from Brooklyn myself, so of course I should be able to get the accent down.
You are from Brooklyn. I didn't know.
I was born in Brooklyn, but I'm from New Jersy, so of course.
Wait, have we talked about this?
No,
probably.
Where are you from in New Jersey?
Oh, that guy Peter. Oh, he's from Monmouth County, New Jersey. That's where he's from.
Okay,
that's the central part.
That's my home state.
Well, New Jersey's a great place. So is Wisconsin.
It's a clusterfuck. What you guys had going on in your election is ridiculous. The way that you set up your ballots in New Jersey honestly, you make Florida look good.
Oh,
that is
wait a minute. Hold on a second. No state can make Florida look good.
On their election, you got to look at the ballot. At least in Florida, we put candidates
I follow Florida
order.
closely. My buddies, I think I told you I worked very closely with a progressive veterans group in Sarasota, and I watched Steals. Okay, I can't do that. Look, wait a minute.
No,
Let's have a competition. Texas, New Jersey, Florida. Okay.
I don't know. Do you know the way they do their ballot line, though? Right? You know how they put the
candidates? It's been too long. I only got to vote. I only voted once in my life in New Jersey.
I have to interrupt. I have to say that it has not only been a pleasure, but if there's one person that we need to get into the U.S. Senate, it is John Fetterman. I think he's going to make a tremendous impact. If we could bring him to the Senate in Pennsylvania, that would really change things.
I just like him because he looks like he's a badass. He looks like a lumberjack, badass kind of Pennsylvania kind of guy.
And let's end on this note, because what I think is of such importance regarding Fetterman, because of the fact that not only did he win in such convincing fashion, but he won against one of the true neoliberal darlings of the Democratic establishment in Conor Lamb. And he didn't just win, he kicked his ass. And so when that happened, it's almost like you could tell the neoliberals on social media, they didn't even know what to say. And you can already see it, Steve, and you could already see it, Harvey. I already saw CNN do a part where they're trying to very slowly but surely try to convince people that maybe Dr. Oz would be better than John Fetterman.
Oh, my
and you
God.
know that's coming. So don't worry.
Wait, Steve, this is yours. You voted in this.
I did. Absolutely.
Okay, but you have open primaries there or no?
No. And just full disclosure. I mean, I did, I don't normally say who I voted for, but I did vote for Fetterman in this go around. But it was a complete shit show out here. You would not believe how bad the politics of Pennsylvania are. As bad as it is in Florida, the political ads that were running, it was naked. I mean, we're talking about naked. We will make sure that those woke people aren't blah, blah, blah. And it was just, it was the weirdest thing. I've never heard people fighting about the actual, we're going to beat those people out there, as opposed to I'm running against my opponent who says. They were literally demonizing half the state. And I'm just like, oh my God. I picked up the phone and I called one of my mentors and I called one of my leaders on my team. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I've never heard this kind of naked, just outright hatred in a political ad, and it's working. Oh my God. Like that, for real, that was a game changer for me. And I don't normally care much for electoral politics, but that right there, that's like when you go out in the street looking, what shirt does he have? He's a liberal. He's a progressive. Kill him. I mean, again, I literally got chills seeing how naked and freak flag flying high. They don't care. Yeah, those people are bad. We need to get rid of them, basically. So, wow.
Our primary is not until August. We have 4 candidates for the U.S. Senate. The man who's in the lead in the polls on the Democratic side is Mandela Barnes, who's currently the lieutenant governor. But it's telling that Clyburn, one of the first people to endorse him, and anyhow, he has barely laid out a progressive agenda. He's probably been advised by DC consultants not to do so. The number 2 candidate is Lasry, Lasry, who actually has laid out a fairly progressive platform online and has a significant amount of labor support. His father's the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, and they were involved in building a new basketball arena. Third is Sarah Godlewski, who is a Democrat who I think she's a Clintonite. I would avoid her. I'll vote for any of them when push comes to shove against Johnson. But in the meantime, my candidate is running 4th, but he is the only one who really has laid out a serious progressive platform, has shown up at labor strikes and picket lines, and also he's the only one of the 4 who has embraced the proposal for an economic bill of rights.
Well, it goes without saying
and his name is Tom Nelson. If anyone,
Tom Nelson, yes. Okay. And it goes without saying that we really need more of this bottom-up strategy and focusing on races that are not as expensive, but equally as important. Everyone gets way too caught up with what's going on at the federal level. The reality is we still have a lot of work to do, but the ignoring of the true infrastructure at the local level is really what's missing. And that's why candidates, as you've mentioned, are able to rise up. The biggest reason why Fetterman was able to win in Pennsylvania is because he's already the lieutenant governor and people know who he is. And that really played a huge role. But with that said, it's always a pleasure to speak with you guys. This is definitely something we'd like to do. And the fact that we brought you two gentlemen together definitely made it
That's
all
very
the more
nice.
worth
I
it.
feel like we made a love connection. I feel really.
We've done it before. We've done it before. We'll do it again. That's why it stays. It shows like this that makes me, and I think both of us appreciate that we do have a good podcast and that it really does help.
We're small and
So,
mighty.
We're small and mighty. So, Steve, the floor is yours. What are you working on? Where can people find you? You go first.
Well, I am, obviously the founder and CEO of Real Progressives and Real Progress in Action. You can find my Rogue Scholar. It's just a video show. I do at lunch breaks Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Real Progress in Action. I'm also the host of the podcast Macro and Cheese, which is released every Saturday morning on all podcasting platforms. You can find it anywhere. And of course, Tuesday nights, I co-host with Jordan Cheriton at Status Quo. And then on Thursday nights, I do my own show over there called Let's Get Ready to Grumble. So
I love that. I love that. I love the little Steve Head boxing gloves icon thing. I love the whole thing. And I like the way that, I like the Let's Get Ready to Grumble. It's a really good,
Always
Very
a pleasure,
clever.
sir. Harvey, the floor is yours. Where can
Okay, well, first, I just want to say thank you for inviting me, even though I didn't know what I was walking. I didn't know I was going to be on the show.
Thought it was a good conversation. At least you got that. So,
Secondly, I want to tell anyone who stuck around, if they didn't hear me at the outset, I do not normally wear monogrammed items. This was a gift, and I wear it around the house, okay, and out in the neighborhood. That's it. Okay, I'm on Twitter, and Steve, just if you follow me, I'll definitely get back to you. Harvey JK, I'll get back to you at the least with a direct message. HARVEY, initial JKAYE. What I'm working on right now is I actually took on an academic commission for something. I'll be writing for the Library of Congress a piece on FDR speeches, and then I'll be doing something for this big volumes on American political thought on FDR. I haven't done that kind of thing in a while. I've been writing more public stuff, but the cause for me right now is the Economic Bill of Rights. And if you go online, anyone, and type in Harvey Kaye or Alan Minsky, Economic Bill of Rights, you'll see all this stuff. Go to the Gravel Institute on YouTube. You'll see the video. I promise it's not long. It's 8 minutes, and you will become a fan of FDR.
Steve Grumbine.
I just followed you on Twitter, by the way.
I guarantee you'll hear from me in a moment.
The love connection has been completed. Gentlemen, it really is a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's great to see you two. And Jen,
great to see you as well.
I'm happy to talk to you about books and publishing anytime.
Yeah, we're working on something. In fact, I just got texted from India Walton, and I'm going to have a conversation with her because I'm asking certain people to contribute to this book I'm working on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether in Wisconsin or at some point, if we make it to Iowa, over the next year, hopefully we can get together at some point. And Steve, what can we say? It's always a pleasure. Thank you guys for what you do, and we'll definitely be talking to you again soon.
Great to see you guys.
Bye, guys.
Nice to meet you. See y'all. Thanks.
Bye, brother. So that was obviously super entertaining.
That was good.
Not bad for a last minute.
Not bad for a last minute show, and somewhat satisfying considering we were not getting to see Jesse later.
So Jesse had a personal matter that came up.
So this was a punt, which was a good punt, though. You know what, though?
I came through.
It's always good. Yeah.
No, honestly, it was going to be two. It was actually, I wasn't sure. I was trying to get Jordan, but he had to take care of his dog, so that was important. And so, I think like I said, it's shows like today that when I really enjoy what we do, and I think it's a fruitful conversation, and it really goes a long way towards what we're trying to accomplish here.
Like, I love it when I see something really cool and I text you and I say, you should get this person on the show. And then I see that they're coming on the show and it's very cool. Like, I feel like I get to just sort of, that's the best part. I do definitely like that. about being able just to reach out to people and pick their brains, and they're willing to just come on the show and talk. Whereas if I didn't have a show, I don't know how many people would want to just talk to me on the phone.
Okay, so Tank's medal round is actually tomorrow. So I messaged him just to see if I can get, an idea of the time. If we have to adjust it, we'll figure it out if we have to.
But the games are in the morning though. That's what I was telling you, which is why we're going and spending the night to be there for Friday morning.
Well, I would definitely think that if getting there early is necessary, and then I can see.
And the cookies won't be ready until Friday.
Okay. Right,
so, but what I want to do is then whatever is happening Friday, there's some sort of something happening in Soccer Friday. I want to meet up with him. It would probably be better to even just hang out with them and sit with him versus watch him play. I mean, I know that would be great, but I don't see.
Would like to have you.
I don't know how to do that now. We couldn't get any information far enough in advance.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I have a place that's booked.
So for those of you on social media who know about Tank Shuttle, he's an amazing young man who is a Special Olympics athlete. He'll be participating this week, in Orlando, Florida, at the Special Olympics. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for not shutting it down. We will be there to see him. Hopefully, we'll be able to meet up with some of our other friends that are there. Maxwell Frost is running for Congress. Got his campaign office. We'll be able to stop by there. Austin Valley, who is running for
water and soil conservation.
Yeah, I believe so. He's a great housing advocate. And of course, our champion, Anna Escamani. Going to find out where her office is. It'd be good to see some good people, tremendous people in the Orlando area.
I wish there was a way to see it tomorrow morning, but it's like we would have to switch our Airbnb from tomorrow to tonight, which I don't know that
No, we would just have to leave in the morning. It depends on what time these things start. That's really what it's about. But, again, I'll wait for him to text me.
No, I mean, I guess. But the whole point of spending the night was to not have to go so early in the morning. I understand.
If he messages and says it's at let's say 10 a.m. and it's going to go till 12, 1 o'clock, then, we could probably do the early bird. So
but also find out what they're doing on Friday and say that we want to, I'd be happy to go have lunch with them, or you know what I'm saying? Nobody really wants me to get up and start driving at 6 o'clock in the morning. Nobody wants that.
Nina Turner just put out a tweet, which I just think is emblematic of everything, which is politicians working for corporate interests will always have an excuse to not pass legislation. Always. It's really that simple, guys. If you support candidates that are supported by corporate special interests, for them, it's just about a career. It's not about actually helping anybody. And when we think about right now, just something as simple as we all know that it's almost assured that Governor DeSantis is going to win re-election. But what isn't being talked about right now, and I think we can fairly agree on this, that it's almost assured that Charlie Crist is going to be the nominee. And one of the reasons why it would make complete political sense for Nikki Fried to step away, endorse, and potentially run for another seat. She's got 9 days that she can make this decision. It would give Charlie an extra 2.5 months to campaign for the general. Now, why is that important, even if he can't beat DeSantis? There are a lot of down ballot seats that can use as much attention as possible. And if you keep on putting money towards the primary, a primary that's basically been decided, then it's just wasting more resources. That is something, when it comes to our involvement with the state party and just the Democrats in general, that never gets talked about enough. And I think if we're going to have an impact, what are we doing?
We are working on helping a slate of state representatives that a friend of ours has put together basically a program that is going to really change how we do grassroots campaigning in Florida. And we're going to be able to circumvent the NGP ban and they can stuff it. But anyway, so we are supporting, working with a slate of candidates that I think we have 10 that are running for seats that don't have anybody up challenging as a Democrat. And in a couple of those seats, 2 of them I think are running as independents. But it's a slate of candidates that are trying to seek a majority where it's sort of like infiltrating off the radar. This gentleman did a lot of research. We know which districts are most possible to flip. And so we will be working with a slate of 10 candidates throughout the state of Florida, helping them with their campaigns and helping them, get their feet going.
And the last thing we'll say before we go, which I think is very important, guys, for those of you who are done with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party and you don't want to support the two-party duopoly, do you understand how many one-party seats there are throughout the country where it's basically that one party and no one runs against them? And if they do, it's basically, it's a waste of time and money. If you have, for example, the worst representative in Tallahassee, and there's a lot of them that are bad, but I think it's fair to say that Randy Fine is right up there as maybe the worst. He's in a plus 30 R district. The fact that the person who's challenging him is doing it as a Democrat shows that strategy isn't the first thing on the mind of the people who are getting involved with these things. That should be an independent who's running in that district. And to be relieved of that two-party duopoly is such a good thing. If you had enough independents in the state houses, they would get to pick and choose who they caucused with in terms of the policies that they want to fight for. That's a big deal. And that is one of the strategies that we need to be focusing on. For everyone who's like, oh, I want the People's Party or the Green Party or the Libertarian Party. How about you could run as an independent and people will support you simply because you are the other thing that's on the menu. We talk all the time how there's just one party. Yeah, it's the money party. It doesn't matter if it's red or blue. You're going to get the same result every time. Have you not seen how everything has been going lately?
Well, that's and I saw Sean Hartman was on here. I don't know if he's still out there, but there are people that I agree. He was saying conservatives should be on corporate too. And I agree.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I agree. That's the thing. If you're representing your constituency and you're not taking corporate dollars, then you're doing your job. If your constituency is conservative, then I don't have a problem with you being conservative. It's, are you representing your people or are you representing corporate special interests? And so that could be across the social spectrum. I mean, that, in terms of conservative versus liberal.
And here's a great example. Sean.
There he is. Yeah.
Sean is a non-corporate conservative who happens to support our governor. And that's okay, even if we don't. We're living in a world today where there's this idea that, oh, you support Governor DeSantis, you're a bad person. And we had friend of the Yang Gang, State House Representative South Carolina, Jermaine Johnson, on the podcast the other day. And he said, I don't like a lot of these Republicans, representatives, but I'm not going to bash a Republican voter because they chose to vote for Trump or whoever. It's like, what do you think you're going to accomplish by doing that?
Voter shaming doesn't work. But also when people act like that, it really pushes, I think it causes people to be more anti-liberal.
Yes, I agree with that 100%.
And it's not helping. It's just not helping our situation. We have a good guest coming up on Monday.
A great guest coming up.
I'm very excited about this. So on Monday, we're speaking with, and I pulled it up phonetically because
there's no way you would have been able to do it correctly.
No, you're right. Phonetically, Yuleen Neo is her name.
Ah, it's a very nice name. So Yuleen Neo, as many of you may know, is running for U.S. Congress in the newly drawn District 10, where she represents as a state senator.
She's currently there, and it's Chinatown. Chinatown, Lower East, and there was somewhere else that wasn't Manhattan, maybe.
This particular district
part
is
of Brooklyn.
Her biggest opponent. It appears her biggest opponent in this district is going to be none other than Bill de Blasio. And so, without question, she has our support. We're very much looking forward to talking with her. And the last thing we will mention.
She's Taiwanese.
The fact that Mondaire Jones is running in this district just goes to show when you don't have political courage, you're eventually going to end up on the outside.
He hasn't declared though yet officially.
I'm pretty sure he did though.
I don't think so. He's not listed as a candidate on the.
Well, here's what ended up happening. Mondaire Jones refused to challenge Representative Maloney, who is the head of the DCCC. But instead, State Senator Alessandra Baegi, who was initially going to run in District 3, where Melanie DeRigo was running for Congress, she decided, no, I'm going to challenge power and I'm going to go run against Maloney because it's the right thing to do. And you know what just happened today? She got endorsed by AOC. So she has courage and is willing to challenge corporate power, whereas Representative Jones wasn't willing to do that. And that's not good. And I feel bad for him because now he really is, he's in purgatory. He doesn't know what the hell to do.
Sometimes
if he had run against Maloney, it's very likely AOC would have endorsed, and so would have a lot of other people.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. Is that a spineless thing? Is that what is that?
It's a lack of balls.
Lack of balls. That's unfortunate.
So, and again, it's not meant to offend Mondaire if you hear this.
No.
It's meant to basically tell you that if you think playing nice with the establishment is ever getting you anywhere but the shaft, life lesson learned, man. Imagine having a congressional seat and maybe even being effective and thinking you're making change. But the fact that you're not a corporate whore, they're always going to come for you, man.
So right now, that's what we have on Monday. Okay. I don't know if if there's anybody else coming on. And then we have an interview with Zach Grauman on next Wednesday, which is really cool. He ran
another member of the Yang
Gang. He ran Andrew Yang's presidential campaign, and he has a book out, which I've put on Audible. So I'm I'll be prepared. I will be prepared for the book.
And I believe we have one other guest that evening as well.
We do?
Yeah.
I don't know. No.
I'm pretty sure.
Nothing on my calendar. You might have booked it, but it's not on the calendar.
Oh, okay. No, I'm pretty sure I did.
Who was it?
You know what?
Because then you booked that woman that I wanted to talk to about rainwater collection.
Yeah, that's on the 22nd. So yeah, we've got a lot of things coming up. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do on Juneteenth, which is Monday the 20th. Jen will officially be in Asheville at that time.
And it is Father's Day, just so you know.
No, it's going to be on Monday. It's not going to be on Sunday.
Okay.
So we will have it figured out.
So we're doing it on our Monday night.
Yes.
You're okay. You weren't okay.
Yeah. So we hope you guys enjoyed. This was a great show. I mean, like I said, I have no problem doing this in the afternoon. As I'm sure you don't either.
Not really.
If it works out.
No, it just was harsh with whatever was going on outside the whole time. They were doing landscaping and tree.
Well, hopefully it didn't distract you guys too much. Appreciate you all. Hope you enjoyed. Got a lot of good views today. A lot of great comments. Glad to see you guys here. And remember, if you like what we do, if you appreciate our content,
check out our Patreon, guys.
More important than anything else.
Check out our Patreon.
For those of you who are constantly commenting on our show, who are taking up rent space in our chat, if you feel compelled to pay a tax, pay a minimum of $5 a month.
Seriously, scat.
That's nothing. That's not even, what is that, 10 cents a day or something like that? Come on. You know you want to. I mean, it's a good show.
Well, but then said person would probably have to their identity.
I don't know. Would they have to do that?
I don't know.
Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. Well, yeah, you kind of do. Well, I guess you could defer, not put any information. You could not put I guess you could.
Well, patreon.com/generational change. You can subscribe. You can become a patron for as little as $5 a month, but $10, $25. Anything you could do to help support our mission, which is transforming politics into service.
And I have been making a conscious effort to go on and put things on Patreon ahead of time before they're released on YouTube, like give people on Patreon exclusive peeks at things. So I've been working on better posting things from time to time. And I would like to go back to having the Zoom members meeting. We did try that for a while, and nobody would come. So, but I guess, we could do that again and see if maybe a new batch of people want to do questions and answers. And then I always feel and if we have a really cool guest for a members only meeting, I kind of feel bad that we're not streaming it.
For example, your support is going to help us next week because we have 2 events for 2 local non-corporate candidates, both who are running for school board, and we're going to attend. And if we end up making a contribution, it will be because of your support of the show.
Which are you talking? Okay, first of all, our show has already donated to both of these school board members.
Okay.
We have made.
So we don't have to.
No, we do not, because we've already made generous donations to both of these school board members, and they're both very exceptional.
Yes, they are. And so with that said, once again, patreon.com/generational change. We really appreciate you guys sticking around today.
Thank you, Sean. And you know what, Scat? I really just hate when people focus on the physical. You know what I mean? If you want to criticize people based on policy or, character or whatever, I feel that's good. But when you nitpick, especially, I don't know, it's really misogynistic. And it's not and I'm not particularly overwoke about this, but I just, you know what? Seriously, don't be like a mean girl.
Yeah, don't be a mean girl. Be a good boy.
Well, I mean, it's don't pick on people's looks. It's just not cool.
With that said, we appreciate you. We literally did it in an hour and a half. That's the length that every show should be. It should be right in that range. So thank you guys. Don't pay any attention to the crap. We'll see you next Monday.